Today we're joined by Joe Hydes, the co-founder of LearnAds and Affluent, and today we talked about the pivots they made with their agency to reach a new level, the changing media buying landscape and why he still sees Facebook as the king, and his lessons after spending over $700K a month on Facebook ads for one of their clients. So let's get right into the episode.
Meet Joe Hydes. He's the newest guest on our new episode. He is the head of operations over at Affluent. Right now, they've generated close to or over 40 million for their clients, mostly spending on Facebook and TikTok ads. So pleasure to have you here, Joe.
Thank you for having me, boys. It's a pleasure. I bought my team mascot, OT the bird, who I am actually going to take off my shoulder now because she's a little bit distracting, but there you go. Nice to meet you, everybody.
Yeah,
I think it's the first bird on the episode, so
I think first pet ever. Yeah, first pet ever. So even better, starting off on a new note.
Great. But yeah, to start off, almost always, you like to dive deeper into you personally at first. So what's your story? How did you get into marketing? Why marketing? What are up and downs? All the fun parts of your story and how you got here.
Yeah, no problem at all. So I actually started in marketing relatively recently and relatively new to the game in a sense. I only really actually started about 4 years ago when I launched my agency with my business partner, Jordan Platten. And we essentially were just kind of doing the whole, the typical low quality kind of like storefront marketing, Facebook leads, Facebook lead ads, all that kind of stuff. And that eventually progressed into ecom, which I now have just an absolutely massive passion for. So we really kind of like did a pivot when we saw an opportunity within e-commerce, and we essentially built out the marketing agency. So it's now full stack, and we're just kind of servicing every part of ecom you can think of, really. And what we do is we try and sell an outcome as opposed to a service, and that outcome is that we scale ecom businesses as aggressively and as quickly as the owner of the business will allow for, and that's kind of our core service offering. And I guess how I started in it was mainly just an entrepreneurial streak. I wanted to figure out, I've always wanted to start my own business, and after my ski career finished, I retired from that. I knew I wanted to start a business, so that's kind of where that came from, really. I wasn't had a particular passion for marketing. I kind of found my passion along the journey, which is nice. But yeah, that's basically how it all started.
Oh, nice. Actually, before the episode, I double-checked when to ask Rain as if you were like an athlete before, because I somehow associate your name with like an athlete of some kind. I think I must have seen or heard about you previously. So that's great. But yeah, for you, did you dive directly into like agency marketing? Like, was there maybe something before that which you tried, which failed, and that got you into marketing specifically? Or was it like directly skiing? Okay, when I do marketing, I'll do the agency stuff. Or was there something in the middle, something interesting?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. So I guess there was a bit of a transition from when I finished my ski career. So that kind of spanned from the age of like 12, and I was professional at 16. I was kind of doing the World Cup circuit and stuff like that for skiing for about 5 years until I decided to retire due to injury, of course. That's what every skier retires from. I was kind of like a freestyle skier, so I was doing flips and spins and jumps and all that kind of shit, basically. So quite dangerous. And that kind of like naturally progressed into videography. So like filming my friends on the mountain, then filming me. And I kind of had this like this little gap between my ski career and business career where I was actually filming for quite a long time, which gave me kind of a bit of creative knowledge in terms of how to record things. And I guess that is kind of like a bridge across through to the marketing world because there's a lot of crossover there. So for 2 years in between that, I was filming for Channel 4. And if you don't know Channel 4, they're a big kind of production, well, they're one of the main TV channels here in the UK. So I was working for those guys for a while. And I eventually decided that wanting to start my own business was the only real future that was in it for me, just because like I'm super ADHD, like a lot of entrepreneurs in this space. I don't really take well from a direction and all the rest of it. So I started a business and fortunately found a passion in ecom. So that's where we are today. But thank you guys for having me on this podcast, by the way. How many episodes have you guys done so far?
Oh,
publicly?
I think this is the 8th, 9th, I think so, around that.
Oh no, it's I think the 10th or the 11th one. We have 4 episodes are public. 5th one is going out. We have a couple of episodes getting ready. We're just releasing them out every week.
Nice, bro. That's awesome.
Nice,
You're
nice,
enjoying
nice.
it, yeah.
Of course. It's been a different experience getting in front of the camera for the first time, officially speaking. So definitely a good learning curve there. But it's getting better. Episodes are getting better, so everything's better
Nice.
for
Cool.
sure.
Love it. Love it.
An interesting question I want to ask, because I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs, they are into sports, or at least very into sports at a part of their life. And I think that is an important aspect of being a successful entrepreneur or a businessman, because with sports, usually you are more competitive. People that turn to sports, they are naturally more competitive, and obviously that is a good thing for business. So have you noticed that for yourself? And like, do you think that's the case?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I'd say the biggest crossover for me when it comes to sports and entrepreneurship is just the ability to focus really, really powerfully. So obviously, when I was skiing and I was performing these jumps and stuff, like every single ounce of focus had to be on that particular trick and that particular aspect of doing that sport. And I feel like in the exact same way that entrepreneurship is, you are required for certain periods of time to be able to complete a piece of work or to be able to finish a sales call. You need hyper focus. And I think that's kind of like the biggest crossover that I've noticed. And what we actually call that in the sport is flow. So when you get into a state of flow, it means you're kind of like firing on all cylinders and your focus never deviates from the actual task in hand. And I feel like the more that you can kind of harness and leverage that term flow, especially on entrepreneurship, the better you can become. And that comes from a place of love. Like that comes from a place of enjoying the task that you're doing and understanding that the mission that you're on as well. And I think that's why it's also really important to set very clear goals, like future goals, not only short term, but long term things as well. And yeah, I think in an interesting caveat to that, like long term goals is a kind of type of focus. And people don't actually recognize that those two are actually completely attached together. Like having the ability to see long term is actually short term focus as well, because it all is the same thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Like an interesting point. So it's always interesting to talk to people who've done sports and do entrepreneurship right now, because there's a lot of things you can take from both worlds and basically get better at each one of them because of that. But
You guys are you guys lift weights, don't you? You guys are weightlifters. I mean, I know you're both quite young, to be fair, but you're both lifting weights a lot. I see. Is that kind of like your
Yep.
sport?
of course, of course.
Now, yeah,
Uh,
now, yeah. For me, it used to be basketball. I used to play basketball for literally pretty much almost 12 years in my um, school days, but I wasn't the best. I still kind of my play style is a lot different. I was not powerful in offense. I was just basically a defensive player.
Yeah, for sure. Fair enough.
For me,
Fair
like
enough.
weightlifting, but I really see the benefits, because for me, like weightlifting has showed like the importance of consistency and basically just always showing up. If you're working out consistently and showing up every week for every workout, you'll see results. I think that the same principle applies to anything in life. So that's great. But yeah, all right. Then to move on to like more juicy stuff, probably what our listeners are super excited about, to learn more about Facebook, TikTok, and all the media buying stuff. Before we get into that, I just want to clarify, maybe I'm wrong. Within your agency, you mostly focus on Facebook and TikTok, and you mostly do media buying without content creation, right? Just to get the base clear.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In terms of content creation, we give complete creative consultation and tell people exactly what it is that they need to produce for us, which a lot of the businesses that we work with are kind of like at the 200, 300K a month level, all have in-house content teams anyway. So we try and make sure that those teams are directed properly by us, and we just tell them and script them out exactly what it is that they need to get for us. And I think that's just such an important aspect of making sure that your ads are effective. It's like getting the exact step-by-step process, unless somebody's taking it in-house, basically. So yeah, but yes, you got that right.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Then before we dive into like the nitty gritty stuff, for me, I always like to look at the big picture because here also there's a good saying by Sun Tzu, basically the art of war guy. I'll simplify the quote. But essentially, what he's saying in this amazing quote is that tactics suck and you should focus on strategy. So when you look at all of your client pool, your client roster, like what are the big picture things you see matter in a successful e-commerce store when it comes to media buying or the store setup itself before like diving into like media buying tactics? Maybe you see that the more successful stores have a big in-house content creation team, or maybe you see they work on very specific angles. Like what are maybe the big picture things, yeah, you see that are very, very important on becoming
Sure. I
successful?
think the biggest, that's a really good point. I think the biggest picture thing, starting right at the top, and the thing that I'd suggest the most to any brand to give it the most longevity that it can, especially coming up to the recession now, is what my phrase is: a store will make you $1 million, but a brand will make you $1 billion. So I believe that focusing on the brand, especially through hard times and even good times, is probably the most important aspect of any kind of successful e-com store. Yes, there's like, you can scale brands to $1 million a month. And I've seen it happen. Shit, terrible little Shopify brands that are selling like a lint roller that kind of like scrapes the hairs off your jacket. And you can scale up to $1 million a month. But in terms of if you want to grow a business and actually employ people and grow something that has value, like innate value in it, as opposed to just a store that's made a bit of cash, then I think the number one thing that you have to do is focus on your brand. And your brand consists of, well, what kind of visually does your company look like? What kind of message are you portraying to your potential customers? What's your brand mission? And obviously within that, what are the products that you sell as well? Like developing SKUs across the board once you've got something that's successful is absolutely imperative to growth. So there's lots in terms of technicality, there's so many things that that you can do, but I'd say as like an overarching view, it's brand. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
Maybe Rainus, I think you'll have some good insights there.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I do agree with what you were saying. What I was thinking in my mind, that you answered this question already, is like, what does a brand mean to you? Because I was talking to a couple of other e-com entrepreneurs. To different people, brand means different things. Some is just like slapping a logo. To some, it's like the customer experience. To some is like having complete custom product. But you answered that. In my eyes, I think probably the most important part is the product itself as like a fundamental basis. I mean, obviously, to like scale a brand to high numbers, you need to have the economics of scale. You need to have great marketing, great creatives. But I think a lot of things come down to the product, because if you have the right product, which has a very, very solid margin, so we're talking at least 75% gross margin, up to like 90 or more or higher, that allows you to spend money at scale and acquire customers. Having finances settled, so you don't have cash flow issues. You don't need to, for example, or stop running ads because you don't have enough cash coming in from Stripe, let's say, to pay off the supplier. Having supply chain in hand, all those things I think are very important, and it more depends on the level your brand or business is at right now, because what you need to focus on think about when you're starting out is going to be different from when you're trying to go from, let's say, $1 million a month to $5 million a month. At the start, it's typically finding product market fit, then it's scaling supply chain, scaling the marketing, and then just really building a team of A players so you can start new marketing channels and go deeper into the ones you have right now. I think that's my answer on a broader perspective.
Yeah, nice. I feel like you did quite a good job of bringing in pretty much every aspect of what makes an e-com business work into that answer. So I love that.
Hope you've been enjoying the podcast so far. Here's a word from our sponsor, ourselves. We'll audit your email and SMS marketing to see if and how it can be improved for free. Simply go to agencyjr.com/call. That's agencyj as in Jacob, R as in Rainus.com/call, and let's talk and see how we can make you more money.
Maybe talk a bit more about like how do you see like the landscape at Facebook and TikTok? Like for us, it's gonna be interesting to compare because like the last episode we had was with a different TikTok agency owner, so he had his insights, and we'll be able to kind of compare them. So I'm curious to see like how do you see the landscape with Facebook, TikTok? How do you see the difference between platforms? And how do you see the future with both of them? And yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's good. That's a good question. I feel like starting in almost in reverse. I feel like the future of the platforms is it's very obvious who's the new kid on the block at the moment, and that's TikTok. And I believe that any kind of agency that decides that they want to kind of own that marketplace in terms of TikTok advertising, or any e-com business for that matter, can do an extremely effective job, because TikTok isn't going anywhere and it certainly has a bright future. But I also think the same for Facebook as well. I genuinely don't think Facebook and Instagram are going anywhere. I think they have more funding than any kind of social media business on the planet, and they're extremely visionary, and for that fact alone that they're going to be around for a long time. But in terms of the difference between the two platforms, it's interesting because I imagine this is kind of what everyone's saying at the moment, that TikTok ads work on Facebook, but Facebook ads don't work on TikTok. And I think ultimately what it is it depends on the actual brand itself. It depends on the product, the type of product that you're selling, which will give it the applicability to be either sell well on TikTok or on Facebook. We just took on a absolutely colossal catalog business, like basically a store that sells other people's products, like high-end brands essentially, and their only form of marketing, and for good reason, is still Facebook carousels. And delving into TikTok might not be the best play for them, just because their impact in terms of how they could advertise what they're selling is not going to be as kind of problem solving as you might get a little e-com store on TikTok to be, if that makes sense. So I think from either aspect, there's similarities as well. I think overall, as the marketing space, we need to just be having way more kind of focus on the creative aspect of every ads, whether that's picture or video. And especially when it comes to TikTok, it's just following frameworks that really make the difference. What we kind of do every time we take on a new brand is just have a look, or actually our constant brands, when we're looking after them month on month, we just have a look at the trends and have a look at the topics and have a look at the kind of the ads that are working in their space and virtually copy them but make them better, basically. So that's all it comes down to. So it's very much just keeping on top of it. And as we know, TikTok is like, the creatives just die so quickly. So making sure that you have like a fresh flow of creatives is absolutely essential. And when you kind of like plug that system and get that system going for TikTok, it also boosts your Facebook results as well, because you can literally just swap the creatives over onto that platform and it will have a really positive impact.
Sure. Like this is like exactly what you mentioned, like the point about like TikTok creators working amazingly well on Facebook, with Facebook not working on TikTok. I think it obviously might be because of the fact that right now people are spending the most amount of time on TikTok actually. So like the flip has already happened. People see TikTok all day, so if they see a TikTok ad or like a TikTok on Facebook, YouTube, or IG, they're already like familiar to that style of video. It feels native to them, so it makes sense why it performs so good.
I have a quick idea that I just saw today. I was on Twitter and I saw Sophie and a friend of ours basically post an example of a TikTok ad made by a car company. It was very cringe, and you could see like maybe some marketing executives sat down and thought like, hey, how can we make kids interested in our product? And it was so inauthentic to the experience. And on the flip side, I was actually on TikTok today because we're starting to post these podcast clips on TikTok, and I saw a brand, Bolt, from our country, post TikToks. Surprisingly enough, the content was very nice. And the reason why I noticed their TikTok manager was actually a teenager. I think she's probably like either in her early 20s or like her late teens. So I think a huge tip for brands would be to hire teens to run your TikTok accounts, because they're on the platforms the most, and the content she creates, it doesn't feel like cringy branded content. It looks like organic content with branded placements. They're using all the voiceovers. They're using different trends we're seeing on TikTok as well, and it makes the content interesting. And their organic posts are hitting FYP quite frequently. I can see it from the views compared to some other brands where they may be running ads, but it's like you can see no one really would care about that type of content. They see it's an ad.
Yeah, true. So it's almost like just keeping it as authentic as possible because, like you said, I feel like when people are scrolling on TikTok, they can tell instantly if you're being disingenuous, and if you are, they're going to scroll right past you. So it's like, okay, how are you actually talking to somebody? And I guess that's the same with marketing forever, though. It's like, how can you actually talk to your potential customer? And the best way is to be as authentic as possible. So, yeah, interesting point.
Sure. Then maybe to expand on TikTok, right now we're obviously spending a lot of money. Actually, a quick question before that is I'm curious to know. Right now, when looking at your clients, are you spending on average more on Facebook or on TikTok at this point?
We are still very much our core service is Facebook, to be perfectly honest with you. Our core service is Facebook, and then I'd say second to that is Google, and then I'd say third to that is actually email, same as you guys, and then I'd say fourth to that is TikTok. We are getting amazing results on TikTok because we've built out a whole team for that particular division. We're just trying to find more clients to basically roll out our service on that front, but in a sense, being a full stack marketing agency has really helped us in terms of elevating a brand's revenue altogether, because there's only so much that you can do if you have control. I mean, I'm kind of preaching this to you guys because you guys pretty much only do email, so feel free to disagree with me. But I feel like there's only so much that you can do when you have just one kind of aspect of a brand's marketing. What we're kind of doing now is offering a service where we take over absolutely everything and we make everything congruent with the entire marketing of the business. So it's like, okay, all the campaigns look the same as they go out for Father's Day. All the terminology is used, all the copy is used, and kind of like we're using kind of like those the brand guidelines to be able to talk, congruently across every channel, essentially. So we found that to be like just super effective at taking brands to the next level. But I'd be interested to know from you guys, because obviously you specialize so much in email, and is that the only thing that you guys are doing at the moment, and how are you finding that?
Email and SMS. We might introduce like similar like site services as well, but right now for the future, definitely it is email focused. We want to keep it that way. As you mentioned, obviously different approaches, different pros and cons. We can dive into those, but I think it's clear. Like with bigger focus, obviously, usually you can get better results on that specific platform. I think that's good. I also think there's different target audiences, so it's basically comparing apples to oranges. I think we can talk all day about the better approach, but for us, like it's great. What they like the fact that we like focusing on a certain marketing channel is basically more control, more systematization regarding that, and also basically just more overall knowledge. Again, if you focus on one thing, that one thing is going to be better than if you focus on everything at once. But on the flip side, obviously, if you get control of the whole brand, making things congruent is also a very valuable thing to have and do.
Sure. Fair play. Cool.
Fair play. Great. Then maybe to move forward into the next topic, the last thing I personally want to touch upon was Facebook. Facebook still is the king, even with the new kid TikTok on the block. The last Geek Out we raised 20 in Miami, I think there was like a nice infographic that's still, I think, like it was like something like 90% Facebook, 10% TikTok, or a triple whale. So Facebook definitely is still the king. But do you see like any big trends, any big shifts happening with Facebook, or your approach with Facebook, or like how are you battling like the tracking issues? Like what's your solution to that? Maybe give some tactical insights there.
Yeah, sure. So again, with the tracking issues, we're using Triple Whale. I've got quite a good relationship with the data scientist across at Triple Whale, and he kind of like showed me the actual pixel that they're using in comparison to Hyros and in comparison to Wicked reports. And I do feel like they're definitely the best availability for tracking at the moment. So we use literally like every single one of our clients are all just like on Triple Whale, and that has helped. It's definitely helped, but the reality of the matter is that iOS 14 did happen. A recession is coming, so everything is getting harder, and all it actually means is that we just need to get better at marketing to stay afloat. Like, there's going to be a divide between marketing agencies and marketing agencies that aren't putting information as their forefront of their growth. And when that happens, we're gonna see a shift. But Facebook isn't going anywhere, and our approach to it kind of changes on a daily basis, to be perfectly honest with you. Having the ability to have so many accounts and just test loads of different things in lots of different accounts just kind of forever is teaching us about what the next best possible thing is to be able to scale a business. I'm still very much a firm believer that it's the angle and the creative that actually makes a difference. And of course, like you said as well, Rainus, the product. People actually have to want the product. It can't be saturated, and it can't be dead, basically. So that's still very much kind of our focus. It's like creating different angles for products that we already know that work, and then scaling them up accordingly. And the thing is, once you find a format, like a video format that works, whether it's on TikTok, whether it's on Facebook, you just rinse and repeat that. And what I find is that it may take 3 iterations of creatives before you get something that works. And then you just make it better and better and better and better. And then you can put more and more and more and more spend into it. And then that's when the exciting stuff starts to happen. And yeah, I think having a team dedicated to basically just psychoanalysis in terms of like psycho marketing and really figuring out what makes people work and what makes people like desire a product that you're presenting them is going to be the thing that gives most marketing agencies the most leverage at the moment, which is why we've decided to go down that route.
Yeah, let's get some media buyers' knees knivering. They're kind of like back on Facebook. There are 3 main focus points. You have the media buying itself, the creative, and the landing page. So we had a podcast recently with Jordan Menard, and he shared his media buying structure, what he's doing, how he's testing creative. After iOS 14, they for example consolidate the account. They run very few campaigns, basically 3 campaigns. That's it. Instead of like going instead of scaling horizontally, they're scaling vertically. How are your ad accounts looking? Like, is there a similar structure you're using? Are you doing everything differently based on the account?
We're actually, that's a very good question. And it depends on the business, to be perfectly honest with you. If we're testing multiple angles, so obviously we know what an angle is. If we're testing multiple angles, we'll have a different campaign for each angle and be testing them out against each other as an A/B test. If we've got an angle that we know that's working and our mission is to scale, then we'll have usually 2 ABOs or 1 ABO and 2 CBOs. So yes, exactly. It's literally like 3 campaigns maximum. And then what we do if we're spending a shitload of money, so we've got a couple of clients that are doing like 3 to 5 million a month. If we're spending a shitload of money, we do the bid mitigation strategy. So that's a strategy that we developed that basically gives kind of an account a lot more stability in terms of like being able to pump spend into it and maintain that spend. Apart from the fact that we need a shitload of new creatives literally every week, like 7 a week. Apart from that fact, it's kind of the account structure is we have a CBO, and then we have a bid cap campaign, and then we have a minimum ROAS campaign, and then we have an ABO. So that's 4 campaigns, and each of the 3 CBOs all have a different bid strategy. And each one of those bid strategies is kind of responsible for the task that we give it. So the bid, like the bid cap, for example, is like, we don't want any more than a $20 cost per acquisition. And if that ever goes above that, then we kind of dial it down. Minimum ROAS, it's like, yeah, we don't want anything less than a 3x ROAS. But each of these campaigns, they kind of work off a different, what we feel like is a different way of spending money and kind of like working the algorithm. And it means that we can just kind of put more and more into these 3 campaigns, and it seems to hold a lot more steady. So that would be my kind of like advice for super big spenders. But anything apart from that, yeah, we just consolidate really. We go broad as much as possible, like broad targeting as much as possible, unless we're going for a specific angle which requires a specific demographic, and then obviously we tailor that into it. But yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell. Right. TikTok is a different story, but I don't really want to get into that.
so for Facebook, when you do creative testing, you're as far as I understand, you're testing creatives on a campaign level.
We're always testing campaigns on an ABO level, ad set level. Always.
Gotcha. Okay,
always
yeah,
test. Yeah. We always test in the ad set, and we always scale with campaign, basically.
Mm-hmm. So it's basically like you would do something, like you take a specific interest and you create creatives for that interest and you test it like that?
Actually, no, we do interest creative stack. So it's a separate entity, because what we don't want to be, apart from the fact that we have a clearer idea of what's working and why it's working. We don't want to be duplicating a whole ad set with a whole bunch of creatives in it when some of those creatives might not be working, and then duplicating that to the CBO. We want more control over, okay, it's this combination of interest and ad that's working. Let's duplicate that into the CBO. It's this combination. Let's fuck that off, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then for creative, what's the type of creatives you see working right now on Facebook?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, completely varies per brand. Like I was saying, that big catalog company was Carousels is still killing it. Carousel by brand. If I'm perfectly honest, the TikTok style creatives are working extremely well on Facebook. So like UGC, that really exciting word that seems to be thrown around a lot at the moment, UGC. UGC creatives following a proper framework. The biggest thing I'd say with UGC is get actors to do UGC as opposed to actual kind of like influencers. Influencers have their place, and they can be utilized. But the thing with influencers is they really should only be used if they're a big influencer, like a really big influencer, and they're actually a face that actually people recognize as opposed to a micro influencer. So my recommendation would be, if you're getting UGC, hire actors to do it, because they say the stuff that you actually want them to say. They use the cameras that you actually want them to use. They actually light their face as well, so you can see what the product actually is. Whereas influencers, they're like, oh no, I'll just do it catered to my audience. And that might not be what's necessarily best for the actual ad itself. So if you use actors, you get the ability to actually just control exactly what you want them to do.
Nice. And then last from the stack is landing pages. What kind of landing pages do you see working, generally speaking? Is it still pushing it to the product page? You push to the, I mean, obviously that will depend on the client. With a larger product selection, you might push them more to the catalog instead of specific product pages. But generally, I want to understand, are you testing out advertorials? Do you do custom landing pages typically for Facebook and for different media platforms? What does that look like for you right now?
Yeah, sure. So we don't really do that much in terms of landing pages. We've got a guy, we've got a guy who does all of our CRO for us, and he's really, really talented. And what he'll do is he'll take a landing page that's already working to an extent and make it better by implementing little changes that increase the conversion rate. We don't really do custom landing pages except for when we're in control of an entire brand's marketing and we want to do campaigns like Father's Day. So if we're doing a Father's Day campaign, we're going to make a whole new landing page, which is like, this is a Father's Day sale. This is this product for this particular price. Here's your discount, all the rest of it. So we'll do it for that. But to be honest with you, we haven't really experimented with advertorials because, in my opinion, as long as the brand, the product, the marketing, and the ads are good enough, people are going to want that stuff anyway without having to worry about the landing page. Like, there's little landing page things that you can do, like putting times on there, but it's like, how scammy do you want to make it before people are just lose authenticity with the brand? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's my answer to that.
Yeah, interesting, because I know a lot of people use advertorials through TikTok. Not to like rebut your opinion, but that's an interesting insight. Advertorials were used a lot of times throughout native ads. They still are, because it's authentic to the medium, and I know people on TikTok use it because on TikTok you do get a lot of that top of funnel traffic, and then you retarget them through Facebook. That's but I do see what you mean, and I would think that still though comes down to the copywriter as well, because you can write an advertorial that's useful. You can write something that's super scammy. The scammy ones you'll typically find on native ads. I think on TikTok with their policies, it's a lot more difficult to create something that's as aggressive per se.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Have you had a lot of experience, you guys, writing advertorials, or what's the score?
We have had some, not us personally, I think.
No, we did. I think we did with
fitness.
Motivated, yeah, in the fitness space.
Yeah, we did. But right now we actually have a couple of clients coming in with advertorials, so it's interesting to go through their funnel, see how they structure everything. But for us personally, yeah, we have had some experience on hands-on as well.
That's very
in
little.
Our team. Yeah. Our team also wrote some, but I think they're coming back. Like we've seen like more clients come in that are running this kind of strategy. So it's interesting. The development there is definitely interesting to see.
Yeah, I remember seeing right as iOS 14.5 hit, Nick Shackelford had a video and they saw advertorials hit hard. There's this brand, Extra Wallets. I have their wallet here. Shout out Tom, Olivier, and Rick. You guys are the best.
These guys, man.
Those guys. And for them, they were like obviously spend dropped by quite significantly, and for them advertorials are working well to keep up that prospecting traffic and have them perform well, because for them specifically they saw advertorials as a way to filter out an audience from like a broader audience. So like for example on native ads, the reason why I use advertorials is you have a very broad traffic, and then the filtration between people who are interested and who are not is done by the advertorial, and then people who are the right audience, then they actually see the product page, and people who are not, they would leave typically. That's what we've seen. That's what we've seen, and I've heard others see as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. What's kind of like your guys' experience recently over the past couple of months with, like how did the iOS 14 thing impact you guys, and actually how did the iOS 15 thing impact you guys as well with the email stuff? Did you see a lot of impact, or what was the score?
Not really, to be honest. For emails, obviously, before that it was simpler, just basically adding like steps of complication of each of these updates. For us, nothing really that much changed. Some clients jumped on Hyro, some of them jumped on Triple Whale, some of them started using UTMs, and also the platforms are using, or basically the platform are mostly using Klaviyo. They also came up with some internal solutions to kind of fix the issue, so not really much changed. I have seen though like some weird open rate metrics in some of the accounts. That's the only thing with overall, like the percentages, the performance has stayed somewhat consistent. And at the end, like the performance, it's gonna stay consistent. It just will like seeing the actual right percentages, because it doesn't really affect like how many of the customers convert. It's just about how much of the data we can see. But on our side, no huge changes.
Yeah, and really, there are a couple of things to know about email marketing. There are two metrics a lot of people focus on. One is open rates on emails and SMS. Open rates on SMS, quite often they're just bogus. You do not know the open rate on SMS. There is no pixel. It's an assumption. On emails, even before iOS 15, there were a lot of bots opening emails, so it would give inaccurate data. And I remember listening a podcast from the guy who runs SendLane, and their CEO said that even before iOS 15, they developed a solution that it doesn't track the first open of the email, it only tracks the second one, because typically the first one will be either some anti-malware tool, something like that. It opens the email and then ships it into the inbox. So a lot of these ESPs, they already had solutions to where iOS 15 didn't affect them as much. What I am seeing right now, there is going to be a bigger impact for apps, because on apps, when you type in an email, it does push the hide my email feature a lot more frequently compared to e-commerce stores, and when you check out at Shopify. So like, yeah, if you know about hide my email, where when you check out or enter email, it just adds like this random iCloud email. On apps, it's very, very overused, if you will. Whereas when you check out on e-com sites, I haven't seen it on my own Mac or my iPhone. I've only seen it when I register for apps.
Interesting. Fine. Okay. Cool. I'm glad to hear you've come out unscathed, pretty much. Then
You're lucky.
Our core service when iOS 14 happened was pretty much Facebook. Now, fortunately, we're in the position where we had some really, really large clients, and we could start to kind of experiment and develop our services like across the board. And that's when we brought email in, and that's when we brought TikTok in, and that's when we brought all the rest of it, basically. And that just kind of gave us the ability to just like hedge our bets against, okay, if Facebook is going down, we've got control over all these different aspects. And that ended up being a blessing, because it's meant that we can now take an e-com brand from where they want to be to the next level, and we can do that using a different variety of what combination of stuff that they need. It's not just like one thing, which is really, really nice.
Great. I think this is also a good ending point to the podcast. But before we end, Reynolds in his episodes always has a fun question to the guest. So I'll steal the idea. I'll also have a fun question, which I'll think of right now. Okay, so if I had a suitcase with me, and if I came into your apartment right now, and the suitcase was filled with £1 million cash, what would be the first thing you'd buy and why?
Presumably it's illegal, this cash. So
Let's say it's legal. It's completely legal. It's just a suitcase full of cash.
it's completely legal. Wow. Gosh, that is an interesting one. I'd be a bit pissed off if I'd be perfectly honest with you, because I would be thinking, oh, I've done all this work to make millions and now someone's just brought it in basically for free. I'd feel like I just wasted all my life just working.
That's why you need connections. 10 works of work will bring you one connection, which will bring you 1 million cash. So look at it like that.
Yeah, true. So I earned it. Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, for sure. I'd probably start another business with it. What I've always really loved the idea of doing, and you can see loads of plants around. I've got quite like a bit of a collection of lots of rare plants, and some are worth like hundreds of pounds, just like little tiny plants and stuff. I'd like to start a business where I just have like all the world's rarest plants in one place, and people have to come and visit to get like this specific plant to be able to buy and stuff. So I might pump that £1 million into that kind of business, yeah, whilst the marketing agency is still washing its face.
Sounds good. Oh, so if somebody listening, definitely steal the idea, create your own rare plant shop, and sounds good. But yeah, it's been a pleasure having you here. It's been an amazing episode. So before we end, where can people find you? Where can people find your agency? And just plug yourself.
Absolutely. So people can find me on Twitter. I'd say that's the place that I'm most active at the moment, and I'm sharing just value all the time, literally every single day. I'm doing like 2 threads a week at the moment, which are just like super in detail kind of learning points of what's happening in the marketing space, what's working for us at the moment, how we're leveraging information to basically scale e-com stores to the next level. So Twitter, I'd say at Joe Hides. My agency is called the Affluent Agency, and if you want to put in an application to work with us, just go to affluent.co/agency, and you'll be able to fill out an application form. And we love speaking to anyone. And we have the other side of our business as well is obviously the Affluent Academy, which is where we teach agencies how to run ads for their clients. So even if you're not a good fit for us, we'll be able to find you someone that's an ideal fit for scaling your brand, essentially. So yeah, those are the 2 places. And thank you very much for having me on, boys. Really, really enjoyed it. Appreciate it a lot.
If you thought this episode was valuable, share it with a friend that may find us useful, and leave a 5-star review so we can reach more influential people and bring the lessons back to you. See you in the next episode.